You have to be willing to accept pain and being hurt and being rejected. And a lot of people, particularly in the world today, they're deathly afraid of any kind of wound, of any kind of hurt. So they protect themselves. If I don't go out in the world, if I don't date people, if I protect myself, then I'm never going to feel hurt. I'm never going to feel rejected. And you want the opposite thing. To be rejected is okay. It's a good thing in life. It teaches you something. I tell people, if you've been rejected, you've been hurt, on to the next person. Just go on, find somebody else. Don't internalize it. You're doing yourself a disservice if you're doing that. Okay, and it's not just because I'm this old guy who never had to deal with that. It's because I've been studying human nature and people for many, many years. And I'm not good at a lot of things. I can't shoot a basketball like I used to. I'm not good at a lot of things, but I understand people very well and human nature. I wrote a very thick book on that. And your ability to understand people, not virtually, but in the flesh, eye contact, being able to be in front of them, to talk to them, not through a screen, but actually there, to actually have to be funny, to actually have to communicate, to actually have to say something interesting, to actually have to express interest in their world. You need to be in front of them. You need to be there and see them. And in doing that, you run the risk of doing the wrong thing, because on that computer, on your phone, you can kind of make yourself seem like, the hottest thing on the planet. You can create a whole fantasy that's not real. But when you're there together, everything's real, and you're going to say something stupid, or you're going to not look so great, or your hair's going to be all messed up, whatever. It's okay. You've got to learn human skills. You've got to go out there and you have to deal with people, because if you don't, it will ripple outside of your dating world into your work world, into your social world. You won't know how to deal with colleagues. You won't know how to say something. You won't know how to be charming to people, right? You'll be all shy and nervous. Wow, swiping. It doesn't take anything. But to go to a bar or to come up to a stranger and try to talk to them and try to get them interested, man, that takes guts. And you're being timid, you're being weak, you're being a coward. Put yourself out in the world, face rejection, and try and develop some real people skills. Because social skills are a muscle. And if you don't ever exercise that muscle, you're just going to be really flabby and you'll never get anywhere. You want to exercise that muscle through real experiences, not through virtual experiences. I wrote the book because I was a little bit worried. People were taking the 48 laws of power is all that matters in life. If I'm good, if I have the people skills, if I can be like a con artist, if I can kind of bluff my way through life, that's power. And there's something missing from that scenario, and that something is you actually have to be good at what you do. You can't bluff your way through life, right? You could be the CEO of a company, you can master all the 48 laws of power, but if you're incompetent, if you don't have the necessary skills to see it through, then it's all going to blow up in your face. So mastery is an extremely important component in the game of power, in your success and your feeling of fulfillment in life. And basically, what mastery is essentially using the human brain, this immense organ, this gift that you have been given, the most powerful instrument that we know in the universe, the billions of neurons that are there, the connections, it's immensely powerful. Mastery is using that brain that you were gifted with to the maximum effect that it has, to reach a level of not just creativity, but to have an intuitive feel for exactly what's going to come next. So if you're a soccer player, you know exactly, like Pele did, or Messi, exactly where the players are going to be. You can anticipate them with a great pass, or like a great basketball player. You're a chess master. The chessboard is in your head. You have seen 15 moves in advance, whereas the other person's only seeing a couple of moves in advance. You're a pianist, and the piano is so deeply inside of you that you don't have to even look at your fingers. It just flows out of you. That is mastery. It's an intuitive feel for the instrument that you are using. And to tell you the truth, it is the most joyous experience a human being can have. But what interested me in the story of Freddie Roach was, and I met him and I got to know him very well, is he was not a great boxer. He was not a master boxer. He was a journeyman, right? You know, he took a lot of punches. His record was good but wasn't great. He was not bad, but he was maybe a mediocre boxer. And his career is over at an early age. He took too many punches. I don't know exactly how old, early 30s. And as a lot of people in that situation, like you mentioned, Olympic athletes, he was very depressed. And he's wandering around Las Vegas trying to make a living. He's doing telemarketing, you know, and he's like reaching the bottom there. You know, he's I don't know if he's suicidal, but he's close to it. And then he wanders into a gym, and he starts sort of seeing some boxers training there, and he starts helping one of them. And I mentioned that moment where Joost Elfer said, Robert, do you have any ideas for books? And suddenly, whoa, yeah. Helping this person, suddenly he had that light bulb go off in his head going, this is what I was meant to do. I'm not a very good boxer, but I am a great teacher. I know boxing. I know the strategy. It's all in my head. I couldn't perform the right thing, but I know about it in my head. And he was able to translate that skill. So I love that story for the ability, the lesson that it has, that you might be that lawyer who's 29 years old, who's like Freddie Roach, who's boxed out, who's taken concussions, who's taken too many punches to the head. And you can segue into something else and become a master, as long as you understand that Freddie didn't go saying, oh, I'm going to become a politician. I'm going to become a writer. I'm going to become a rock star. No, he's going to take his boxing skills and become a great teacher. And over the course of 10, 15, 20 years of teaching, he knew every little aspect of what we call the beautiful sport, the strategy of boxing. He had it in his head. He wasn't the man punching, but he was the man telegraphing, telling people how to punch. I think it's an amazing story, an amazing lesson. You know, when I was pulling nails out of those boards on the island of Crete to pay my way off the island, and I was pretty miserable, if I ever looked at the 500 boards that I had to pull out the nails, I would have killed myself. I just did each board at a time, each rusty nail, and took them out one board at a time. You don't sit there and go, wow, I've got 19,800 hours ahead of me. You just do what you have to do. So here's the beauty of it, Randall. If you're starting out, you're 21 years old, and your apprenticeship starts, which is usually about 7 to 10 years long, whatever field you're in, and you have chosen something that you want, that interests you, that excites you, in some way, it doesn't have to be exactly what you're going to end up doing, but it excites you. Those hours just float by. Yes, it's painful. Yes, you have to learn things. You have to practice. You have to take your punches. You have to take some pain. People have to criticize you. But in general, you're having a great time. You're learning. You're young. You look good. You have energy. People like you. You know, when you're in your 20s, life is beautiful. I don't care, how depressed, how poor you are. You're 20 and you have all this energy. It should be wonderful. Okay? So, you're not sitting there thinking about each hour. You're enjoying it, you know? So if you're Kobe Bryant, God rest him, soul, if you're 20 years old and you're just starting in the NBA, you're not thinking of all the the next 10,000 jump shots you have to take. You're in the moment. You're getting better each day. You're progressing. You're competing. You're getting better, and you're enjoying it, and you love it because you had a great love of basketball. So you don't sit there and count the hours. You'd kill yourself if you did. You're in the moment. But if you don't find the career that was meant for you, if you have a bad match, if you were meant to be a basketball player and you're a lawyer, that's a terrible metaphor, but it's something like that, you're going to be miserable. You're going to be counting those hours. You're going to be going, damn it, I have to do law for 8 more years. I have to put 10,000 hours. I'm never going to make it. You're going to tune out. You're going to be a failure. You're going to start taking drugs or something. I don't like the word passion because it sounds like a perfume ad or something. It's not. I don't like that word. I like the word desire. Okay? So, because passion is like something kind of uncontrolled. It's too strong. You want to have the desire for something. So, when I was in college, I studied French for 2-3 years because I love foreign languages. And then I went to Paris where I worked in a hotel. And damn it, I couldn't speak 3 words. I couldn't order breakfast. I couldn't tell, what I wanted a room for this kind of thing. I couldn't do anything. I hadn't learned a thing. And then when I was at the hotel, I think before I was at the hotel, I met this French girl that I was really excited about. I wanted to seduce her, right? She was fantastic. In 2 months, I learned more French than 3 years of college because I wanted to. I had the desire. So if you desire something, you learn at a faster rate because you're motivated. Your mind is open. When you don't want to learn something, you're 26 and you have to study algebra, you're never going to learn because you don't want to. You're tuning it out. You're not focused. But if you're focused on something and you desire it, your mind just is absorbing it at a much faster rate. So desire is the key to learning in anything. And so if you're trying not to play the power game, if you say, I'm not interested in power, that is a maneuver in the power game. You are implicated in it. You are trying to pretend that you're moral, that you're above it all. That is a power move. So the idea behind it, to answer your question more directly, is the feeling of the human being is basically, we come into the world somewhat weak, right? As a baby, we're crying. Unlike any other animal, we spend an incredibly long period being dependent, right? So powerlessness, feeling that we have no control over the world, is very built into our nervous system, right? And we cannot stand the feeling of being powerless, of feeling helpless. It's very primal emotion built in. And so we're all scrambling for some degree of control over the world. So the idea that I cannot influence at all my children, I cannot influence my spouse, I have no influence or persuasive powers over my boss, over my colleagues, is deeply, deeply painful, right? We can't stand it. So we're going to try in some way to get power over it. So there's so much in life you can't control. If I were to pick out a number, I would say 95% of life is circumstances that are completely beyond your control, namely death itself, but a lot of other things, okay? So power is the ability to maybe on the margins to have a little bit more influence than you would have had if you're completely ignorant, if you're completely helpless, if you don't understand anything about power, right? So it's the degree to which you can kind of influence and move people and not feel that helpless feeling like, when an animal is on its belly, it feels completely vulnerable and it freaks out, right? Well, we get that feeling too sometimes, and it's not a good feeling. So to the degree that you have confidence that you can direct the course of your life, that you're not just simply open to any circumstances aren't pushing you around, that is the feeling of power. It's also the degree of power over yourself, self-mastery, mastering your own emotions, etc. So it's that slight margin of control that kind of knowledge can bring you, and I think is how I would define it. Emotions are extremely important to the human being. You can't be creative, you can't think, you can't write a book, you can't make a movie, you can't be successful without some kind of emotional background, something powerful motivating you. Your desire to have power is what's going to make you kind of try and get it, right? Things like ambition or whatever. For me, it's a desire to write a really good book, something that's very true or real. So if I didn't have any emotions, I wouldn't be able to write my books. And actually, a lot of anger is what impels me to write a book. But the thing about emotions is that when you feel an emotion, so many things are much more complex than we imagine they are. We use language, and language is just kind of this screen that doesn't really describe reality. Emotions are very complex. They're not simple. They're a mix of things. They're just basically these hormones churning up inside of these chemicals that we ascribe anger or love, etc. But they're more complex than that. And so you operate on an emotion, but you don't understand it. You're not thinking about it. You're not analyzing. You don't know where it comes from. And actually, your anger might be mixed with envy. It might be mixed with even love. It might be mixed with things you're not even thinking about. So you need to apply intelligence to your emotions, not suppress them, but try to understand them.